My name is Guillermina. I am here today together with my colleagues from the University of Santiago de Compostela, and we are a part of the Living Lab, the Galician Living Lab within the framework of Rustik. I'm going to be talking about a multi-actor approach to give support to the implementation of the model villages, and we call it like this because we are focusing on how to support the implementation of these villages. Simon has already made that brief introduction of the project. So just to emphasize a little bit what has been said, let me tell you that Rustik is intended to enable rural settlements, rural communities to implement and design implement better strategies, initiatives, and policies that promote transition in rural areas. So the goals are socio-economic transition in the face of climate change and climate transition, and digitization. As it's been already said, we are 14 living labs in different countries all over Europe. Our living lab is based here in Galicia. So in that triangle that we've seen earlier, we are between that strong policy link and generating new data. So this is how Rustik was created, and this is how the Galician Living Lab was created. So our context that you probably know already, maybe not the people who are online, is Galicia. Galicia is a region encompassing half of the settlements, human settlements of Spain, 30,000, but now nine out of every 10 of these settlements have less than 100 inhabitants. It shows that 75% of the population is concentrated in a 20% of the territory, which is called the Atlantic axis, the line that goes from the cities of Ferrol, Coruña, and then Santiago, Pontevedra, and Vigo from the north to the south of Galicia near the coast. 2/3 of the total population own land, and this is due to a process of desagrarianization that has been intensified in the last few decades. De-agrarianization. Vegetation near the settlements has increased, and this has also increased the risk for wildfires in the areas where there is an urban forest interface or a connection between the inhabited areas and the forest areas. And this has been aggravated due to climate change with extreme periods between from high temperatures to droughts and a lot of rain. So the people who are a part of the Galician Living Lab have asked themselves how they can actually reconcile land ownership and land use, and what are the implications of this for them, for the landowners, and for the economic development of rural communities and for the prevention of wildfires or the reduction of wildfire risks. So this is, as I've been saying, one of the villages where we have been trying to implement our experiment. It's Infesta, and you can see how the forest interface collides with the inhabited areas. We also have an aerial image, and if we look at the political framework, we have to say that our Living Lab has focused on the law for the recovery of agrarian land in Galicia, agricultural land in Galicia, and in a specific instrument, which is model villages. This is a tool that tries to give an answer to vulnerability in the face of wildfire, and tries to give an answer to the abandonment of the agricultural land. So one of these tools is model villages that are supposed to reduce these risks. Nowadays, we have, 29 model villages have been approved, but if we look back and we remember that we had 30,000 settlements, what happens in all of a sudden all villages, if all of a sudden all villages want to be model villages, or there are a number of applications for this. So what are the priorities? So what villages would be a priority, will be given priority to?
Bueno, estas son as aldeas modelo.
Okay, so these are the approved model villages. So you can see where Galicia is on this map. Maybe I should have shown it earlier. So to this end, we apply the multi-actor approach. We at the University of Santiago de Compostela, we have conducted interviews with AGADE, which is a body that belongs to the local government or the regional government, and with Traxatec, who are responsible for the technical implementation of this tool. We conducted visits to the villages of Infesta and Pedrosa, which were from the beginning potential model villages, and we obtained qualitative information that was very important to get to know the motivations of people when it came to accept this type of territorial management or land management measures. So what we decided to do was to set up system to support multi-criteria decisions, which includes qualitative information that helps us determine what are the priorities in terms of village model villages. So these priorities were discussed based on the interviews, and we had discussions with the staff of Traxatec and the other organization, and these that you can see in the image are positive factors if they favor the implementation of the village, and negative if they don't. If they make implementation more complex. The criteria that were used to determine these variables was to have a potential cost efficiency and the impact. I mean, the potential cost efficiency factor and the impact. So what gave us the opportunity to implement this decision support system, was the fact that there were negative aspects in the population, such as the lack of trust towards the government, towards the authorities, that mistrust that is typical from Galicia, we could say, and also that fear to lose one's property, one's land. So that is always there in the mindset of people, together with attachment to the land, even if it's abandoned. So we conducted some field work as well as the interviews, and this enabled us to come in direct and frequent contact with the population, the local population, and to foster a greater ease for interaction between the local populations and the authorities. And they could see that some projects started to be implemented, and this helped for them to better accept the interference or the participation of the authorities. So at the end of the day, we managed to obtain a robust tool, including that quantitative information. It doesn't include qualitative information, from the interviews themselves. We also managed to bring research and the authorities, the government, closer to each other by working towards a common goal. Also, we increased transparency in the process and as results, and this enhances and increases the trust that people have, landowners, regarding this type of processes and the authorities. And so we managed to build a decision support system that helps us to attach, to attach more importance to field work and work with people, and not that much just the collection of information, to gather information. So if you have any questions, please go ahead. I don't know if you want me to answer questions now or maybe leave them for later. Yeah, maybe we'll leave questions for the end of these three presentations. So you can ask questions, regardless of whether you are here or whether you are attending the meeting remotely or online.
No son personas, ¿no?
So I'm going to need my presentation there, otherwise it's going to be much harder for me.
Como evidente no son, así que
I apologize, but the sound doesn't seem to be working properly. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Granular project.
Tipo Britney Spears que decían. ¿Ahora? Sí, creo que ahora mejor. Vale.
Okay, it seems to be working now. Okay, so the Granular project is a parallel project, a sister project of Rustik, and is being coordinated by Montpellier, in our case, a Montpellier partner. So it's nearing the end of its implementation. It's in its last year, but we have been so fortunate as to win the next community, and this is something we're trying to conduct a more real implementation that is more applied to the territory based on the knowledge that we acquired in Granular. So this has enabled us to develop some of the things I'm going to be introducing here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about okay, we seem to have problems again, technical problems again. Okay, what we did was to conduct our own research, and based on our research, we conducted a rural profile analysis of the context that we had in front of us. So, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about how this Granular project is articulated and how Rustik is articulated with the living labs. We have a number of living labs all over Europe, and in Western Europe, well, we have living labs, and the replication labs are located in Eastern Europe for some reason. In the case of our living lab, this is an absolutely anarchic living lab, but one that is orderly, articulated. So we work with universities and research centers, public administrations, both at the regional, provincial, and local level, with some town councils in the province of Orense, with corporate representatives, and we're also working with rural players by conducting specific measurements and applying specific metrics
concentración. Investigaciones específicas reais utilizando
where we're
outputs,
using
digamos, culturais. Por ejemplo, estamos
cultural
traballando
outputs. We are working, for example, with Ruben Rios, who is a Galician actor who has made a lot of interviews with old people. Aging is one of the topics of our Living Lab. He has conducted plenty of interviews with old people, with elderly people. So we have conducted a quantitative analysis of the words that elderly people use the most, and then we drew some conclusions telling us what are the elements that they are more interested in or what they need the most, the people older than 85 years. So we gathered information about the fact that they attach a lot of value to the social aspects, but also everything that is connected to the land, the territory, and the ability to continue interacting with the territory. Every living lab within the framework of the Granular project involves a number of topics that are not pre-assigned, but they are assigned once the project is implemented based on the needs that working with the local partners are decided by the living lab. In our case, we decided to focus on aging, and in the province of Orense, basically, we need to remember that Trás-os-Montes, Zamora, Orense is the eldest area of Europe after Eastern Germany. So this longevity was the essential aspect of our study, and also electronic governance. We're working with electronic governance elements for aged people or elderly people, and also with environmental issues such as wildfires or other types of cross-sectional risks affecting this community or this group of people. What is rural proofing? That is one of the research topics of Granular. This is Galician translation made by ChatGPT last night. I hope that it's fine. So the rural proofing means to review policies through a rural lens to make these policies suited and useful for the people who live and work in the rural areas. In practice, it is about analyzing, in terms of the policies that have been carried out, the real and potential implications and impacts, whether they are positive or negative, direct or indirect. There is something that I don't really like in this regard, and this definition or in this translation, and this is the fact that this is being carried out, but it is also a methodology to analyze the ones that already exist, just to determine whether they have that rural approach. So there's this duality. So we, with rural proofing in a workshop that we carried out last year, we worked with some local partners, and we tried to suggest that commission a word translated into Galician, that have been translated into Galician and into Spanish, instead of using rural proofing. This is an Anglo-Saxon concept that is very fashionable in Brussels and London, but it sounds like Greek to us. So we're talking about verifying whether what we're doing is actually useful for the rural communities, which is quite a thing to say. So this would be like a small contribution that we make from Orense to Brussels.
Vale, como decía, tenemos siete living labs.
So we have 7 living labs and 9 replication labs. At the beginning of each project, each living lab chooses a number of priorities, since we are all over Europe. So the needs or elements that are more important for Europe as a whole are represented, and then we made a cross between the living labs and based on their needs, and a comparison based on their needs and requirements, because the disparity or the variety in terms of types of rural areas in Europe is very broad, but this is one of the difficulties that we have, not only in Granular and Rustik, but also in other projects. I mean, our realities are so different that it is difficult to actually carry out joint activities. This has been compared to the cases of Scotland, Sweden, for example, based on age and territorial scattering. And compared to Laponia, for example, I mean, well, distances are greater. Everything is closer here in Galicia. So, as I have already said, we have a number of living labs, French, Italian, Dutch, Polish, Spanish, Swedish, and Scottish. And some of the priorities are mobility, tourism, biodiversity, agri-food value chains, ecosystem services, tourism, well-being, life quality, quality of life, agri-food value chains, demography, forest fires, e-governance, and the Scottish Living Lab, rural proofing, rural diversity, and rural compass. And then the Swedish have not been included here, but they're working on, or they're focusing on rural dispersion. So this is basically about the following. What we do in the project is, well, to set up this living labs that generates a number of indicators and data that, based on a number of policies, are analyzed from the point of view of the rural proofing methodology. This is the methodology that has been developed within the framework of the rural proofing project, with a number of, well, tools, Excel sheets, analysis, etc. So with this filtered information and these outputs, this leads to the creation of the rural compass, which is going to be delivered at the end of the project. It's going to be submitted to the Commission, and it's supposed to be a new compass that is going to guide the new rural policies at the European level. Let me now tell you a little bit about what we did and how we have applied this to rural proofing. Another piece of information or research that we have conducted within the framework of this project is to work with the systems of teleassistance for elderly people. This is a button that people press if they need help. They've got like this small device and they press a button on it, and if they need help. So this is a very simple system. Which has an element which is the following: it generates a lot of data. For a normal month, for example, we have in Orense, in the rural areas of Orense, we might have 1,000 or 1,500 emergency calls. And this can be analyzed based on what are the peak hours, what are the rush hours in terms of emergency calls, and also it can be connected to environmental issues, etc. So this helped us suggest a technology that can, or a methodology that can be used in other contexts also. And we also found very interesting that while we are working on this, we're going to be applying the rural proofing methodology to our work. The first thing that we had to do was the following: identifying the policy and the initiative. I mean, it's not that easy. We're working with these tele-assistance devices and with the data of the Provincial Council of Orense, the Provincial Authority of Orense. But the first thing that we need to do is to understand the background legislation. When we're working with a specific policy, we're working with the data, but we need to read and understand the regulation before we do anything else. So it was a big challenge to understand how teleassistance works in Galicia, and then to explain this to the replication lab so that they can actually understand how to replicate this over there. So in Galicia, we had the following issue, and this is very interesting for rural province. The Galician government has a teleassistance system for dependent people, and then the provincial councils, the provincial authorities have also a similar system, a parallel system for people with less than 20,000 inhabitants, and then the cities, such as Ourense, have their own teleassistance system, a parallel system also for the people who live in that city. So each of these three bodies subcontracts a company for emergency calls, data analysis, etc. So you need to have a data map to read the regulations, etc. So what is rural proofing? Well, this is funny. This is also difficult to define rural proofing, because based on the regulation that we're using, which is the regulation of the province of Ourense, this is exclusive for villages with less than 20,000 inhabitants, which is all of the settlements of Ourense, except for the city of Ourense. So the regulation, well, as such, it does not have a rural mindset. So this has some implications. So the Ecoris methodology, or the methodology created by Ecoris, was very useful for us so that we could analyze this case step by step. And then we drew the conclusion. Rural proofing is not rural proofing because you need to answer a lot of questions, you need to answer a lot of indicators, and then based on specific things that are in the regulation, well, you get a result, whether that corresponds to the rural proofing category or not. So all of this has been uploaded to the Granular website, and this and the documents that we had to fill in are uploaded there also. This can be replicated by any European institution or anybody, really. So first of all is to identify the policy. What we're trying to do is to apply this to the system of social terminalism of the authorities of the province of Ourense. So this has to be a specific policy that develops something that is also specific, because otherwise there is not much to do with this. So identification is not simple. To summarize and to understand the policy is very important. This would be step number 2. And then to assess the impacts. How do you assess impacts if you haven't got the information to assess the impact of that policy? And then we have a complex issue also that is complex for us, or is something that is difficult to operate with at a European level. Step number 4A, to have the policy data, is something that is very difficult for us, that is difficult in general. It's not something that is openly accessible. You need to cooperate in a close manner with the various administrations. In the case of the Netherlands, we have some experiences in this regard, and they have some material and some platforms that are very interesting for the researchers over there. And so we need to have those data available, and then we need to conduct an assessment and validation of the system. So we did all this based on the data and legislation for teleassistance in Galicia, and then we have an output that is being assessed at the moment just to determine how to which extent this is rural proofing or not. So this is the various steps more in detail. 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, and then 4A and 4B, and each of them has a methodology based on templates and specific procedures that help us obtain the information that we need. This is an example of the things that we have covered. This is a question. You need to fill in a number of indicators, answer a number of questions. This is like, basically paper like this, like huge spreadsheets. And the person who coordinated this at Ecoris, especially, who is a student of ours now at the UVigo University, conducted an excellent piece of work, very powerful piece of work, and she set up a more easy to use version. And that's basically it. Thank you very much for your attention. I hand over the floor to the following speaker now.
Pues nada, hola, buenos días. Son Tania, Gesto, da
Good
Fundación.
morning, my name is Tania Gesto from the Fundación Juana de Vega, and today I'm going to give you another approach because we had Guillermina in Breixo introducing two projects financed by the same project and belonging to the same call. So they have some differences, but also they are quite similar. And I am going to present another project, the Down to Earth project, which is similar as far as the topics addressed are concerned, but it's different concerning its nature and its approach. Our project is financed by a different program called Interreg Europe. If you don't know it, it's one of the, it's financed by the European Fund of Regional Development, and it encourages the exchange of experiences and learnings among European regions, especially among public authorities of different regions, because the purpose of this program is to favor a good use of the cohesion funds in the different European regions. So the objective is to improve regional development policies. As I was saying, it is a program focused on public authorities. The main partners to which it is addressed are public authorities at different levels, national, regional, and local. Although other entities can participate, like public institutions associated to public authorities, universities, public universities, and private non-profit private organizations, which is our case, the Juana de Vega Foundation. We are a private non-profit organization. And another characteristic or limits set by the program is that it is exclusively addressed to experience exchange programs. It's not about creating new knowledge or developing new tools, but about connecting regions across Europe that have the same challenges and are therefore working in the same fields, see what they are doing and make the most of the knowledge from other areas and try to replicate it in other regions so we can learn from each other and from the innovations that have already been developed in other regions. The program covers different types of objectives. The main ones are smart, green, and social, a smarter Europe, greener Europe, and a more social Europe. But there are other areas covered also. So I'm explaining this because I want you to understand the framework of this project. As I was saying, even if its nature is different to Guillermina and Breixo's projects, it shares some lines as far as the challenges in the territory that it wishes to tackle. Guillermina already talked about the problems that can be found in many rural areas, specifically here in Galicia, but also in other European areas. We have a challenge, which is the depopulation and abandonment of lands, and this has conclusions not just in the social field but also for the environment. The rural areas are more affected by different types of environmental degradation, soil erosion, and lack of biodiversity.
Prácticas máis hostibles tamén se ve dificultada pola falta, non, de poboación no rural.
And also this is worsened by the lack of rural population, who are the ones who are more willing to innovate, do new things, and the lack of this population in the rural areas is like a vicious circle. So rural areas are especially exposed to natural disasters more than urban areas within a context of climate change. So these are the foundations that we considered when devising the Down to Earth project. And the idea was to tackle two challenges together, the social and the environmental challenges, but they look different, but they are interconnected because, for example, here with the wildfires, the depopulation of these areas also leads to worsening the wildfires and other repercussions that can come from climate change. So considering all of this and the nature of the program and the projects that are financed and the challenges that we wanted to tackle, we designed the Down to Earth project. Its goal is to improve regional policies in the 6 participating regions, identifying, promoting innovative solutions and solutions that were successful already in other areas around Europe to manage, preserve, and promote natural capital, reducing the risks and impact of environmental disasters, generating economic and social opportunities for rural areas. And this is included in the green priority of the Down to Earth, of the Interreg Europe program. So who is part of this project? It is a project led by the Galician Agency for Rural Development here in Galicia, and also the Foundation Juana de Vega. As I mentioned before, maybe some of you don't know us. So it's a non-profit private foundation that works promoting projects for the rural development of Galicia. And therefore, everything that we're talking about is linked to the work that we carry out in our foundation. So we have these two partners in Galicia, and we work together to improve the implementation of the law to recover agrarian lands in Galicia, which was already explained by Guillermina. Also, we have 6 other regions in this project: Germany, Necaral, Slovenia, with the region of Gorenisca. In Greece, we have Western Greece. In Italy, we have the Council of Campobasso. In Romania, we work at national level because the partner is the National Agency of Meteorology, more specifically the project working on data collection, giving specific information for farmers. And we also have a partner in the Netherlands. They are not participating as a region, but the partner that we have there is in charge of communication. So as you can see here, the consortium is mainly composed by public authorities and institutions or partners linked to the administration in some way. For example, in Italy, we have a city council. In Slovenia and Germany, we have 2 regional development agencies. And in Greece, we have a university. And as I said before, in Romania, a meteorology agency that is closely linked to the ministry. So it is a kind of multi-stakeholder consortium with different partners. All of them work with a policy instrument, and one of the objectives that we had is that each policy instrument should be different. In our case, for example, we have a law. In Romania, they have a strategy. In Greece and Slovenia, they have regional development plans. So that was one of the challenges that we had. I will talk about this when we talk about our methodology, but this is what we wanted to do, to exchange information among the different regions. Even if these are the members of the consortium, which is mainly made up by public administrations, but we are not working alone. In the 6 regions participating in the project, we have a group of stakeholders since the beginning. In Galicia, for example, we have different general directorates within the Galician regional government associated to different regional ministries that cover different topics. Then we have the Galician Agency for the Forest Industry, the Group Association of Rural Development in Galicia, the Galician Federation of Municipalities and Provinces, the 3 Galician universities, including the academia there, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Galician Observatory for Demographic Dynamization. And this is the same in all the other regions. I'm not going to give you the list of all the stakeholders participating in the project, but a similar group has been created for each region, because even if the program is addressed to public authorities, we understand that you cannot design or implement changes in public policies from just one place. We need to exchange and promote, we need to promote exchanges among other stakeholders. In the case of Galicia, these are the ones that were selected, and these bodies are participating not just as a group that has been appointed, but they have constant meetings. Every activity that is carried out is validated with them. And then we also invite the stakeholders to participate in the exchange activities that we have with other regions.
Como trabalhamos, non? Como deseñamos
So,
a nosa
how do we work?
metodoloxía de traballo
How
contexto que tiñamos marcado
are we designing our work methodology? Okay, so we established the challenges that we had when learning from each other, when we have so many instruments. Basically, the objective was to identify good practices, analyzing why they worked, and see how this can be implemented in other areas around Europe. The project is divided into two stages. The first one would be the core phase, which covers the first 3 years of the project. We are now at the third year, about to finish it. We're in the second half of it. So we are about to finish that core phase. And then the project has another year for the monitoring of the changes, which should have been already implemented during the core phase. So we designed a work methodology, which is cyclical. As we had 3 years, we wanted to cover 3 main topics. During the first year, we focused on the environmental risks related to depopulation and aging in rural areas. Then during the second year, we wanted to focus on the productive areas of the sector and the barriers that farmers find in depopulated areas, why young people are not moving there, what are the main problems or the barriers that they find. And the third year, we focused on the tools available to strengthen the role played by farmers and land managers to reinforce their role in the climate fight, how their roles can be strengthened in this fight against climate change. So each year we repeat the same pattern for the topics addressed. We always start with a seminar with experts. So the different partners who are not necessarily experts in these topics. So we have European experts who can set the foundations of the work, and based on that, each region focuses on analyzing the situation of their region with regard to this topic. So there is an analysis of strengths, opportunities, threats. There is also an analysis of the legal framework where there is room for improvement. We try to identify good practices that are already being implemented, because even if there is room for improvement, there are already projects and initiatives that can be replicated because they are working in other European areas. And then we include proposals and suggestions. So during the first semester of the year, the partners of each region, together with the stakeholders, focus on this analysis. It's an internal analysis of how we are, where we are, what are the good practices that we have, and how can we improve? Where can we find room for improvement? After this analysis, we move to the exchange phase during the second half of the year. So the partners compare. This is something that we do especially at the university, and we compare the situations of the different regions. We extract some lessons learned and recommendations that can be used by the partners or participating regions or by any other region that shares similar challenges. They don't need to be part of the project. So we share these recommendations to including changes that can be done to tackle the challenges that we have in the project in a more efficient way. And this is completed with field trips. Once every 6 months, we visit one of the participating regions to see and to talk to the final users about those good practices that we mentioned before. In fact, we have already conducted the first 5 visits. There is only one missing, which will be the last one here in February in Galicia, and it will come together with a conference because every year at the end of the year of the project, which is not the calendar year, we have a conference. So February is the end of the year end for us, and every year we organize a conference that is it targets the general public because we want to share this knowledge with them, not just with the partners. We want to disseminate the information. So in February we will have that conference organized by the foundation in this case, in coordination with Agadir, and we will have a conference where we will present a final report of the 3rd year, including the recommendations and improvement suggestions. And then we have a monitoring phase or stage where we see if the exchange experiences and are working. We monitor them. It's not only about making changes, but you need to monitor and check if those changes are efficient and are working. We need to see if things are working or not. So the last year is more about seminars at regional and interregional level to assess the small changes and impact that the project could have. And there is going to be another conference. I think it's going to be in Italy. Maybe it's not that easy to visit Italy for everybody, but there will be a conference there to present the results.
Siempre me pasa. Bueno, ahí vamos, vale. Vale, entón, como digo, ainda non rematamos.
So as I was saying, we have not finished yet, but we are already in the final stage of the core part of the project. We are working with the Galician Agency for Rural Development to introduce some improvements within the framework of the land law, and the partners of other regions are more or less at the same stage. We are also working on the 3rd regional report with recommendations for us and for any other region that wants to implement those improvements. So these are provisional, incomplete results. We cannot measure still the impact on population, for example, but there are more than 60 bodies involved in the project that are already exchanging experiences. Here we include all those meetings and exchanges that we have with the different members of the different regions. We have identified 21 good practices that were presented and validated by the experts of the Interreg Europe platform and the Policy Learning platform. These were initiatives, many of them Galician, that were presented before the experts of the program who assessed them and validated them, and they can be checked at the website that you will find in the last slide. And we have 2 reports with lessons learned and recommendations to promote more efficient policies. These 2 reports are already available online at the project's website. They are a little bit long, but there are practical summaries
dos Países Baixos que fai uns resumes supervisuais
by the partner of the Netherlands that prepares very visual short analysis if you don't have time to go through an entire report, and they have been already presented in conferences in Greece and Slovenia. And lastly, I would like to finish by sharing with you some of those lessons learned and key recommendations, even if they were devised for other contexts. They can be also implemented in this multi-stakeholder approach with a participatory component. And I wanted to share with you 3 of the recommendations that we extracted in these last 2 years that we've been working on, and they are lessons that are usually repeated. Even if the topics were different, these are topics that are always there. So we analyze what works and why. So the first lesson is that we need integrated and cross-border policies, transversal policies, with a strategic and coordinated planning at different levels. Sometimes we talk about a multi-stakeholder approach. We need universities, academia, representatives. Yes, that's okay. But we think about the administration. I have the city council. That's okay. No, that's not enough. Sometimes only one representative of one group does not show the variability involved in that group. This is something that we have already proven in this project. Maybe it looks like there are many administrations involved. We have different general directorates, for example, but we need to consider that the administration is not an only entity, but it's a group of entities. And there are different levels, as Breixo was mentioning before, with a very practical example when he was talking about those systems to help the elderly. We have the national level, the regional level, the municipal level, all of them working on the same topic. So we have diversity when we talk about the administration at vertical level with different levels that may be working on the same topic with different approaches. So it's important to work together to see how we can build synergies and reduce inefficiencies. But also we have a horizontal variability. Maybe this administration is not in line with another one, and we are dealing with very big challenges like the demographic challenge or environmental impact. So we need the cooperation of different areas. Therefore, even if we talk about one single stakeholder, we need to consider the variability that can be involved. Then public participation in policy design. If we want policies that are more efficient and that meet the needs of the public, we need to know what their needs are and involve them in the process. It also helps to implement the measure afterwards. If the public participates in designing a measure, it's going to be easier for them to implement it after. And lastly, cooperation. Cooperation among the different agents is very important to improve the policies because it reinforces resilience and promotes the entrepreneurial spirit that is so necessary to tackle many of the challenges. And this could be my presentation. Here you can see the website. If you scan the QR, you can also access it directly, and there you can see the results that we have reached up to now. Well, thank you very much to the three speakers.